Hello, welcome back to Simon's Rants. I'm Simon, and today I'm giving my on-second thought on The Mask. Now, this is your spoiler warning. If you haven't seen it yet for whatever reason, you should go watch it, come back, and we'll talk about it then. So in case you don't know, The Mask is a 1994 film starring Jim Carrey and Cameron Diaz, and it was directed by Chuck Russell. The plot of the film follows Stanley Ipkiss, who's played by Jim Carrey. He finds a mysterious mask that has magical powers because it was created by the god Loki. When worn, the mask gives magical powers to the wearer and brings their innermost desires to the surface. It makes them invincible, it makes them super fast, super strong, and extremely animated, which in the case of Jim Carrey works very much to his favor. Stanley Ipkiss realizes with his newfound powers that he could be a superhero or fight crime, but decides that he needs to settle a couple of things first. From there he has a run-in with the mob boss who decides that he wants the mask. It's a very good movie, it's very interesting, and it was extremely unique at the time that it came out. We didn't have a whole lot of superhero or comic book movies coming out in the mid-90s. We had the Batman movies, and before that we had the Superman movies, and there were some other projects going on, but nothing was quite like The Mask. Nowadays we've got like Deadpool and other characters like that aren't really good, aren't really bad, they're just doing what they do. But that wasn't a thing in Hollywood at the time. This was the first movie like that we got based off the comic book universe. And it was actually a bit of a happy accident because that wasn't the original plan. As I just mentioned, Chuck Russell was the director of this film, and this wasn't what he usually did with his movies. According to his IMDb page, other than this, his most notable movies are Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and The Blob. He did these horror movies that were a bit funny, but because they were campy and because they were weird, not because they were intentionally funny. And he was brought in to make The Mask as a horror movie. And that makes sense when you read the original comic books. Yes, there's definite comparisons between him and Deadpool now, but the original Mask was a lot more like the Joker. The original The Mask comics were sadistic, dark, and very gory. So it made sense that if you're going to translate it from a comic book to a movie, you want to go in a more dark approach. You want to make it more on the horror side of things. But that's not what ended up happening. So if they had brought in that director to do that, then what happened? Well, Jim Carrey happened. So like I mentioned about the character of The Mask, he's very animated, he's very stretchy, he's very weird, and does all these off-the-wall type antics. So after Jim Carrey's success on In Living Color, he was cast in this movie for that ability to be so animated and elastic. And turns out he's also very funny. So Chuck Russell, seeing the direction that this movie could go in with Jim Carrey in the lead, decided he wanted to go with a little bit of a lighter turn, a PG-13 version if you will. Something that emphasized more of the comedy and more of the animated side of things. There would still be the violence, and he would still be crazy, but it would be more cartoony and a lot less dark. So instead of being an R-rated Joker, he was more of a PG-13 Deadpool. And I love this movie for it. Could it have been good as the original R-rated dark version that was intended? Yeah, probably, but I love the PG-13 version that we got. It's silly and goofy, but it's lighthearted fun that I really enjoy. And it's got great acting from Jim Carrey as well as the other actors. This is the first appearance of Cameron Diaz, and she does great in this movie. And Peter Green is a fantastic villain. I love him in this movie. I mentioned in the second thought of Ace Ventura: Pet Detective that Jim Carrey was off the leash and a little bit wild, and a little bit more structure might have helped. Well, this movie added that structure that was great to it. His Stanley Ipkiss character was very laid back, very quiet, very shy, but still funny in his own right. Whereas the Mask character was off the leash and crazy in a zany cartoon where Jim Carrey could unleash his personality in that character and was able to do both so well simultaneously. This acting is phenomenal. And I know it's just a silly little comedy, so it didn't get any sort of like award buzz or anything, but people should have been paying attention that his acting was legitimately great. Another thing that I want to point out about this movie is that it's just really well written. I already mentioned that it was original because it was starting a whole new trend in comic book superhero movies, but it didn't just follow the trends of the other cliche style of superhero movies, it came up with something completely new and well written. Take for example the character arc between Peggy and Tina. Stanley is obsessed with Tina, and understandably so, she's a blonde bombshell. But Tina's working for the bad guys, and Peggy seems like a lot more reliable, although a little bit more homely choice. So it seems like the movie is pushing him in that direction, saying that, oh, just because she's not hot doesn't mean she's not a good person, which is a good thing to say, but it's the cliche thing to say. More accurately, it's actually saying hot people are bad, so don't date somebody who's hot instead because they're not evil. But this doesn't do that because it turns out that Peggy's actually working for the bad guys and Tina becomes the good guy. So you don't have to feel bad for loving the hot girl. She's also a loyal, intelligent, good guy who leaves the bad guys to help Stanley win. That's a great twist because it's the counter cliche and I love it. It would be so easy to make him go with the other girl because, the hot girl's the bad guy. But no, they do something more creative and less expected. And then there's one last thing about this movie that's a bit of an intangible. It's got heart. With a PG-13 raunchy comedy that has this guy who's got the ability to be invincible and change what he looks like and change what other people are doing and look like, you would think that this movie would be a lot grosser than it is and a lot more crude humor and objectifying women, but that's not the case of this movie. Yes, there is a bit of both of that. We've got the used condom bit and we've got the Cameron Diaz close-up on the boob shot, but it's not really focused on. Those are two small moments in the movie. It's not the whole movie, and that's not the focus of the movie. And a lot of it can actually be summed up between the relationship between Stanley and his dog. It's just so heartwarming. And heartwarming isn't a word that you would really expect to use to describe this movie, but that's what it is. This movie is a feel-good movie, which it had no right to be based on the source material, or even just based on the concept. When you hear it, it sounds like it would be a lot darker, a lot cruder than it actually is. But no, it's actually a really fun, slightly older family movie. The comedy's great, and like I said, it's got a great heartwarming feel to the movie. The writing is very original. There's not much to hate about this movie, if anything at all. And the fact that this came out the same year as both Ace Ventura: Pet Detective and Dumb and Dumber, and people have a hard time picking which one was the best movie to come out that year, means a lot. 1994 was a great year for Jim Carrey, and this movie is a big reason why. So that's what I had to think. Please let me know in the comments below what you guys thought, and of course don't forget to like, share, and if you're new here, subscribe. Thanks guys!